Well, the first impression of CS was like, wow, this sucks.
I didn't like it. I remember telling my brother, like, how can you play this game? I don't even understand.
Yo, yellow.
Why buying an auto, man?
It's an auto way you are getting it, unfortunately.
And when Source came out, I tried it for like 5 minutes and I was like, I'm never playing this game. This is stupid. I'm leaving. I'm back to 1.6.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
The Source Eagle was just ridiculously good. It wouldn't work in today's world, I think, because I think that it's just it would be too strong.
We don't want change for that. So if it's something that's not familiar, then we don't want it. That's what I've been gathering from the community, and this is something that we referenced that kind of put words in your mouth on. Is it's better to say what are we going to do to add to the game instead of saying, hey, how does this compare to 1.6 or Source?
Quite a ride Counter-Strike has had so far. The original beta concept, the rise of 1.6 as an esports title, the controversial release of Source, the absolutely horrible release of CSGO to one of the most polished, competitive, and rewarding games of all time, and now to CS2, a game that is highly controversial, with some saying it was a clear upgrade over CSGO, to others playing Source because CSGO is no longer supported and they can't stomach playing another game of CS2. Despite the new additions, despite the pretty graphics, Valve have just struggled to keep the players satisfied. Was the game just too broken on launch? Has the nature of CSGO been left behind? Are the players unwilling to accept change? Or are Valve too slow in fixing obvious issues? Or maybe it's a little bit of everything. One thing that has always remained consistent with Counter-Strike is just about everything Counter-Strike. From the time that Counter-Strike became its own official game in 2000 to today with CS2, there hasn't really been many changes compared to other games that get a complete overhaul every year. We still use the AK as the main T-rifle that can one-shot headshot enemies. We still use M4s that don't one-tap heads, but due to the everlasting maps that have been played for over 2 decades, the difference in firepower is intentional and will forever remain. The Deagle is still the highest representation of skill and satisfying as all hell, and the AWP will always be the powerful weapon that creates the greatest highlights and also gives noobs a way to enjoy the game as they learn the unique mechanics. We love a good point-and-click adventure. But part of the beauty of playing Counter-Strike is that every gunfight, every movement mechanic, and every bit of map control is so refined that even the smallest differences can drastically change how the game is played on all levels. And whenever a change is made, the community is fast and loud when voicing their opinions. Before the 1.3 patch, bunny hopping was crazy. It took a few patches to get it right, but in its infancy, you could bunny hop just like Half-Life speedruns. Although I love watching these, it does cause issues in a competitive game, but they removed all of the fun and skill. Not everyone can bunny hop like me, and it's clearly a mechanic in the game. Why are you removing my fun? And despite 1.6 being the golden boy, let's not act like the game is anywhere near the refinery of a modern video game. It's certainly amazing for its time, but if you think pixel gaps and jump bugs have ruined Counter-Strike, you should see what original Counter-Strike players dealt with for years without any patches. It wasn't until the development of Source that people realized how much they loved the original Counter-Strike. Yeah, the new graphics are good, but all of this visual clutter takes away from the simple one-on-one skilled gunfights, and the netcode is absolutely terrible. Source smokes are also very dense. You're telling me that you can just throw a smoke and completely block off a choke point? Hitboxes are too big, making the game way too easy, and the Deagle recoil or lack thereof makes it way too powerful. Now Source and 1.6 both had active players for many years before their eventual merge, and both communities would hate on each other, explaining why their game was better. One could say that it's impossible to appeal to both sides. So we continue on this journey of Source versus 1.6. 1.6 won the popularity contest as the game was established already and the existing pros refused to switch. But at the end of the day, they were both losing, as viewership and prize pools dropped for both games over the years. That is until 2011 when CSGO was announced. And with its eventual release, there's finally unity between Counter-Strike fans. Unity in describing just how terrible the new game was and why Counter-Strike will die with Go. Too many glitches in the maps. Movement feels weird. The guns don't feel right. Movement inaccuracy is a joke. The op accuracy is weird. Molotovs are overpowered, which to be honest, they absolutely were. But the idea of Molotovs being a stupid addition is fun to look at today. ADAD spam is wild. I can't run it on my PC anymore, it's too laggy. You can now get kills with pistols. When I put the other team on an eco, I should get a free round. And of course, the fog was just bad for a competitive game. But over time, Global Offensive continued to improve, and by 2016, the game had already eclipsed anything the previous iterations have ever achieved. Yet, 1.6 and Source diehards would still never touch it. It's not 1.6 and it's not Source, therefore it's bad. Despite all the love CSGO received by the end of its active duty, there were still some that call it a shit game for noobs, because it's different than their beloved game. So then we enter CS2 and we see some familiar faces. Recoil doesn't make any sense, ADAD spam is too powerful, too many glitches in maps, new smokes suck, subtech will never work, movement doesn't feel right. The game was hated on launch. Today, we move towards a game that is no longer hated, but controversial. Some have accepted it as better than CSGO, others reject it as an incomplete game with inexcusable issues, and others consider it an alright game that needs some touch-ups. Some of those initial complaints have disappeared solely from the experience that players have gained with the new mechanics. Some complaints remain, and they should. Every launch since the original Counter-Strike is hated and labeled as the death of Counter-Strike as we know it. As we explore where CS2 has failed to excite the fans of this long-standing franchise, keep in mind the nature of Counter-Strike and the perfection that is requested upon it unlike any other franchise in gaming. Not to mention the nostalgia for previous games that negate the thousands of hours spent raging. One big aspect of Counter-Strike that fans consider a positive is that the game was entirely created and controlled by the community. Even today, Valve are pretty hands-off outside of making and maintaining the games. Valve also don't really do much for advertisements or promotions. If you start playing Counter-Strike, you either found it yourself or a friend recommended it, and you fell in love with the game yourself, not through seasonal objectives and DLC that keep you playing. And competitively, there is a worldwide scene for LAN tournaments and aspiring pros that connect and work together to qualify for open tournaments and hopefully reach their dreams. One of the reasons why Counter-Strike was able to become such a worldwide game comes down to the performance necessary to run it smoothly. Some countries are more fortunate than others. Some families are more fortunate than others. You may not get an Xbox to play Halo. You may not have the money to buy a new COD every year. But almost any PC could run Counter-Strike. The problem that we are running into with CS2 is that the performance is comparable to a AAA title, not a competitive game. I can run Cyberpunk, an absolutely beautiful game at high settings with stable FPS. I can run any other competitive game at a very high FPS with no hitches. I cannot get a consistently smooth performance from CS2. The frame rates are a constant struggle for anyone who doesn't have an X3D CPU. Even if it's an insane CPU, without stacked L3 cache, even if your FPS is high, you can experience hitches. And looking at the current market, I can only imagine how many people are looking at CS2 right now and thinking any chance they have at potentially competing at a high level is impossible due to hardware limitations alone. How is this game supposed to stay global with new talent all across the world when only those in economically stable countries, rich families, or with a decent job, which likely means they're past the point of pursuing Counter-Strike, can even play the same game as other high-level players? And where are the LAN cafes with computers that have over $1,000 of modern parts in them? If you're not in an Asian country, the answer is probably nowhere. CS2 has alienated a portion of the player base. Unlike CSGO days, when the game was new and unoptimized, facing similar issues that we see today with CS2, the answer isn't to save up and one day play your favorite game. It's to take your dreams somewhere else. You may not be able to run CS2, but you can run Valorant just like everyone else. In CS2, you whiff a couple times in a game because you get a hitch when taking a gunfight, or your FPS in general is so low that it's a slideshow at times. To me, CS2 was supposed to bring a whole new generation to the game. Yes, there's all these options in the modern competitive world, but look at this brand new game, isn't it cool? You should try it and see if you fall in love. Those people can no longer be reached. They have been alienated and moved on, likely forever. If I had to pick my biggest issue with CS2 itself, this would be it. How can a game so simple, with maps so small, and graphics so basic, run worse than a AAA title that looks like a movie? The classic saying for anyone who plays Valve games is to expect nothing and you won't be disappointed. Unfortunately, for anyone that was a hardcore CSGO fan, if you expected nothing, you would have been disappointed. I made that whole section earlier on about the failed launches of Counter-Strike games and how Counter-Strike players hold a CS release to unreasonable standards. But there's something to be said about Valve having 24 years of Counter-Strike experience, taking a broken CSGO and turning it to the biggest game on Steam and the most storied FPS ever created. Yes, the expectations were high, but Valve also knew every expectation that the fans had. A good netcode, smooth movement, the ability to customize like we have for the last decade, some kind of content update like an operation, all of the game modes we used to play, normal CSGO animations, stuff like that. So the game was hated early. The fact that these aspects of Counter-Strike were broken or missing was insane on launch. Even worse, considering they had an indefinite time to work on it if they never announced the game. Comparisons to the CSGO release are common when discussing this topic like I did earlier in this video, but Counter-Strike today is not Counter-Strike in 2012. It's embarrassing that the comparison can even be made. But that's fine. Counter-Strike 2 can be the experimental game for a while. We will just play CSGO while they fix everything like back in the day when 1.6 tournaments were still running after the CSGO release. Well, they weren't exactly quick about fixing core issues in the game. 5 months for Arms Race to come back, over a month until you could play community servers, 7 months for the left-hand view model, and there's many other issues, like getting animations improved, which people have been complaining about for months, and various bug fixes that were found by the community and reported to Valve early in development that had never been fixed. Just scrolling through the patch notes, there are a ton of bug fixes, and that's expected. It is essentially a new game, and with that, new bugs. And those bugs take time to discover and find a suitable fix. You can look at something like the jump bug that couldn't be replicated 100% of the time. I can absolutely understand how that would leave you stumped and can be pushed to the side since it rarely has any impact. It's just very frustrating when it does. Even just recently, their attempt to fix it caused unintended issues and didn't even completely fix it anyways. I get that not everything can be fixed in a day, but the frustrating part is how many updates have included fixes and additions that you would either expect right from launch, sometime during the beta, or on the priority list after launch, not a year after launch. Were people going to be disappointed one way or another with the bugs that came with a new game release? Absolutely. Many of these issues discovered as a community probably wouldn't have been discovered with another year of development time. But the clearly wonky issues that could have been acknowledged by playing just one game, or the content that was missing, is a disappointment. And the length of time that we went without these issues being acknowledged is where the hate truly comes from. On one hand, I understand why Valve wanted to push out CS2 before Deadlock, to give the fans something to enjoy while they go radio silent for a while. On the other hand, maybe they should have just waited until Deadlock was completed, or almost completed, so they could put more focus on consistent updates instead of leaving us with a frustrating game for months. But the wrong move was definitely removing proper functionality for CSGO. That's how we end up with a source resurgence in the year 2024. Anti-cheat was also something that was expected, but this bad boy needs its own section. It is of personal belief that the cheating issue in Counter-Strike is the reason why Counter-Strike hasn't completely dominated the whole gaming industry, and honestly, the reason why Valorant can even exist in the first place. Likely many of the people watching this are pretty deep in the Counter-Strike hole, but if you infiltrate another community, they can't help but mention that Counter-Strike isn't a fun game because of all of the cheaters. Some of these people have probably never even played the game, but everyone knows that Counter-Strike has a massive cheating issue. Counter-Strike 2 gets announced, and with it, a premier rating system that will actually show the top ELO players worldwide and in the region, with a reason to actually grind matchmaking and a very public view of the best players. It is very important that the competitive integrity is maintained. Well, it's safe to say that the competitive integrity was not maintained. Not only did CS2 have some of the worst cheating that we have ever seen, the leaderboards were dominated by cheaters for months. How is someone with basically every cheat available and has played more than 100 games is still holding on to the #1 leaderboard spot for months? It's better now, but when cheating was horrible, I had to derank from 23,000 to 19,000 just to play a regular game of CS. Otherwise, I was getting a cheater or multiple cheaters in every match. It was genuinely unplayable. Luckily, Valve have got a handle on the cheating issue as of today, but 20k Premier, you can still run into people running aim into walls. And this seems absolutely insane to me, considering the amount of games necessary to get that rank. Sure, they get banned at some point, but it's unacceptable that a cheater can run free for weeks in this game. All this talk about VAC AI has felt like a smokescreen to keep hope that people would get banned one day. VAC 3.0 was rolled out to a limited amount of servers, but there's still ranked cheaters in Premier playing every game, so are they not hitting any of these servers, or has 3.0 already been defeated? CS2 could have destroyed the image that Counter-Strike has created for itself in the gaming space, and all they did was highlight it and make it worse. From a marketing and popularity perspective, I would say that this is the biggest failure of CS2. Things have changed over the last few months, and I do have to ask, are the people publicly discrediting the game still actively playing? And are they even looking at it objectively? I've gone back to CSGO on my own time to play a few games here and there. I think I'm at the point now where I will never boot up CSGO ever again. With animation fixes which were a big issue when holding angles, and some good work done to well-known glitches and stability issues to the game, it plays pretty well actually. It's just different. It took some time for tracers to not distract me from spraying, and the fisheye lens scope was also a little bit of an adjustment. But now, I play CS2 mostly like I played CSGO. I say mostly because breaking smokes have become such an important part of the meta that playing the game like CSGO is playing to lose. I know it's only been a year, but it's hard to imagine one-ways and waiting out smokes like we did in Go. I actually feel a level of disgust when I get smoked off from an angle and can't blow it. It almost feels like the game was made wrong. So when you play your next CS2 match, are you getting mad at issues with CS2, or are you getting mad at the same things that would tilt you in CSGO? Let's not act like every game was fun, and every meta made sense, or was fun to play and watch. If you think CS2 still has massive issues that make the game very frustrating, I agree with you. But saying that the game is a broken mess that sucks competitively is objectively untrue today. The CS2 launch and subsequent disappointments are all just a classic Valve experience, but at least we know how the story will end. The question is just how long it will take.